Good evening, ghoulies and ghosties and long-leggedy beasties. This is Alex, coming at you from the underworld, and welcome back to another episode of As you may or may not know, St. Patrick's Day is one of my favorite holidays, which this is mostly due to its culture and my heritage. So for this time of year, I love to not only indulge in the holiday's food and drink, but I also love to indulge in Celtic folklore, which I do this by surrounding myself with holiday-themed movies, music, and books. Also, I do normally love to go to a St. Patrick's Day parade or go to a pub, but since COVID is still pretty bad, this is going to be my second year in a row that I don't join the public. So because of that, I'm just going to stay home and I'm going to cook the typical Irish dinner, which I have on the menu cabbage and corned beef, as well as twice baked potatoes and an Irish cream bundt cake. Also, to get the party started, I got some spirits with me. And without further ado, let's go in and break open these bad boys. Well, that was refreshing. Anyway, last year I had... Wait a minute. Did I just do that backwards? How's it go? Liquor before beer. You're in the clear. Beer before liquor. You're never... Anywho, as I was saying, last year I had planned to read and review the book Great Irish Tales of Terror for this year's St. Patrick's Day. However, before I could crack open that title, I discovered that one of my favorite authors by the name of Ronald Kelly had released a book called Irish Gothic. So as soon as I discovered this, I downloaded it onto my e-reader and dove into it right away. And because of Irish Gothic taking priority this year, I'm probably going to read and review Great Irish Tales of Terror next year. But without me babbling on anymore, let's grab us a few pints and head on off to the Emerald Isle. Although I read Irish Gothic on my e-reader, I would like to take this opportunity to brag about the print edition that I have, because not only is it signed by the author, but he drew this really cool skeleton leprechaun in the bottom corner. So yeah, this is totally flippin' sweet. And if you would like to get your own signed edition, I have included links to the author's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram in the description section of this video, so hopefully if you hit him up, you'll still be able to get a signed copy. But with bragging aside, Irish Gothic is a collection of 7 pulpish short stories, and among those we have tales that feature banshees, witches, werewolves, vampires, the devil, orgs, and even this whimsical type of Sherlock Holmes detective who specializes in Irish cryptoids and spirits. And among this collection's small number of stories, Kelly provides a wide range of diversity with genre blending because not everything in here is extremely horror-based. However, each story does have its own dark side, and it's a good reminder of what lurks beyond the green fields of clover. At the beginning of Irish Gothic, Kelly noted that in junior high, he wrote a report in regards to a surname, and by doing so, he discovered he had Celtic roots. From that moment, he gained an interest in regards to his family tree, Celtic history, and folklore, and it was this information that would later inspire not only the stories in Irish Gothic, but it would inspire his previous novel called Undertaker's Moon, which had also been printed in 1991 under the title Moon of the Werewolf. For fans of Undertaker's Moon, Irish Gothic provides an origin story for that novel called The Spawn of Arget Bethair. Fun facts. Unlike my other videos, I was actually able to correspond with Ronald Kelly and get some more information out of him in regards to this book. So here's a few things that you might not know about Ronald Kelly and his inspiration for Irish Gothic. When I complimented Ronald Kelly on his ability to describe Irish landscapes, I asked him how he was able to achieve this level of description without ever having been to Ireland. He explained that Irish Gothic was built on imagination fueled by a lifelong love of a country he had never been to before. Also, since the 7th grade, he developed a great deal of love for Irish literature, film, photography, and art. Because of these sources and the stories folks told him, he was able to gain a sense of time and place that he was able to apply to his fiction. Dialogue-wise, Kelly noted that he loves the rhythms of Irish speech, and he feels that considering the country's proximity to England and Scotland, it has a charm and distinction all its own. Also, he learned a lot of that dialect and rhythm from films like The Quiet Man and A Circle of Friends. Among the characters featured in Irish Gothic, Kelly noted that the detective and his assistant in the story O'Sheehan was a tribute to Holmes and Watson, who are two of Kelly's favorite literary characters. And due to the growing fandom of this particular tale, Kelly is flattered that so many reviewers want the adventures of O'Sheehan and Shannon to extend into an entire casebook or novel. Cover-wise, Kelly noted that when he brainstormed the cover art for Irish Gothic with Zach McCain, he knew exactly what image he wanted to convey in regards to the bright normality of Ireland versus the darkness of its folklore and cryptid history. Now that we have that covered, it's time to move on to the spoiler section, which, if you haven't read this book before, I'm about to reveal some things that could ruin the experience for you. So if you would like to click away, just scroll down to the comments section of this video, click on the timestamp that I provided in the pinned comment at the top, and it will direct you away from the spoilers and to the thoughts section. Now, you only have 17 seconds to do this, so ready, set, go! Since everyone has had the opportunity to click away, I'd like to talk about 3 of my favorite stories, which the first one that comes to mind is called The Wee Village. Now, this story is about a small coastal village who lives in fear because of these behemoth-sized orc-like creatures called Fomorians. And because of their destructive nature, the village children are warned to stay away from them because there's the chance that they could get abducted and become imprisoned. Then, after we receive some backstory, we become introduced to a young husband and wife couple who unfortunately get abducted by the Fomorians, and as warning foretells, they end up spending the rest of their life as prisoners. So, even though this was an extremely simple story, I absolutely loved it because of its Twilight Zone-style twist ending, which this is when we discover that the Fomorians actually have these strong human-like qualities, and those within the wee village might have in fact been little folk. Also, this reminded me about how human beings are the only species who capture other creatures for their own amusement. And as I was thinking about that, I was reminded about my childhood when my mother told me that it was okay to catch fireflies as long as I immediately released them thereafter. And because of growing up with this, I always did the whole catch and release concept, which unfortunately is not the same case for our characters in this story. My next favorite story was called Postcard from Kill Kinney, which this is about a man by the name of Graham who one day receives a postcard from his uncle who had always been the family black sheep. And as a child, Graham was afraid that his uncle was actually the spawn of a black magic magician who had become a vampire, which he believed this because his uncle always appeared similar to how vampires were depicted. Plus, his uncle had some pretty weird mannerisms, like, for example, he would only come out in the evenings, and he hated mirrors. But with the postcard, Graham discovers that his uncle wants him to return to his hometown so they can meet. And even though he's hesitant, he and his wife go to Kill Kinney the following day, only to discover that there's a serial killer at large who's murdering people with the last name of Nolan, which this just so happens to be Graham's family name. And to make things even more disturbing, the victims share similar wounds that would be common in a vampire attack. Now, this was not your typical tropish vampire story, and because of that, I absolutely loved it. And what I really did appreciate here was how at the beginning we get the whole folklore of the vampire and the whole fantasy vibe, but then when the twist ending comes, all of that is stripped away and we discover that this is actually a slasher story. Which personally, I really think that this is more effective because I'm just so burnt out on having the typical vampire stories that it was just refreshing to see this was a schizophrenic serial killer who honestly thought he was a vampire. So yes, normally vampire stories don't do it for me, but I absolutely love this one. My next favorite story was called The Spawn of Arget Bethair, which this is about a young friar in the 18th century by the name of Ian who had been having these awful werewolf-themed nightmares. And when he tells the father of their monastery about this, he learns a Celtic legend about a man who had sold his soul to the devil to gain riches. Then when this man failed to uphold his end of the bargain, the devil had cursed him to become a werewolf with each full moon. Yet Ian is assured that this is nothing more than a story, and due to the stress that he's under, he should return home for a fortnight to visit his sister. However, when he returns home, he discovers that this legend isn't just a story. So, this was a pretty awesome creature feature period piece that focuses on the epic battle of good versus evil, which this is seen by how Ian is able to resist the beast within after he acquires a religious artifact. And what I really love about this is most stories that focus on good versus evil, it ends up being like this external battle, but this story presents us with not only an external battle, but also an internal battle, so that was pretty cool. Also, I absolutely love the amount of lore and gore that was in this story, while it was able to remain fable-esque. Now, aside from those three stories, there were two other stories that I absolutely loved, but of course, I saved this segment for my top 3 favorite stories. However, I am going to cheat just a little bit and talk about my 4th favorite story in the Tea Time segment. I would like to use the opportunity to bitch about the assholes in Flanagan's Bride. Now, I don't mean that they were actually in Flanagan's Bride, but they were just characters in the story. So if your perverted mind was thinking something else, you need to just pull it out of the damn gutter. But anywho, this story is about some unfortunate looking dude by the name of Joe Flanagan who is about to marry some hot piece of tail in the next town over. And due to his appearance, his workmates are really being dicks to him, especially this one douchebag by the name of Sean who's still pretty salty because Joe handed him his ass a few years ago. Well, once Joe returns to town with his new bride, they do see that she is indeed a thirst trap. However, with the following nights, every evening is filled with this god-awful wailing, and I really don't think that she was getting her jollies due to how it sounded. But this one evening, Sean and his little boys and crap, they decide that they're going to kill Joe and then they're going to pull an I spit on your grave on his wife. Well, after they kill him, they discover that she's actually a banshee and she drives them all batshit crazy with her scream. So I absolutely love this story because anytime you have a strong woman who hands a chauvinistic pig his ass, I absolutely love it. So yes, this story was absolute gold. Irish Gothic was a great collection as its diversity focuses on dark fantasy, horror, and even a little dark comedy. But overall, I believe its main goal was to send its reader to Ireland without them having to leave their recliner. And due to how authentic the Irish culture felt in this book, I was provided with the escapism necessary to feel like I was actually in Ireland. Out of the 7 stories in this book, 5 of those stories were really outstanding and 2 were simply fun, which means there are no bad stories in this collection. And my top 5 favorite stories would have to be Flanagan's Bride, The Wee Village, Diabol's Timepiece, Postcard from Kill Kinney, and The Spawn of Arget Bethair. Which among those stories, The Wee Village really had this cool Twilight Zone vibe to it, and also Diabol's Timepiece really felt like a good throwback to Tales from the Dark Side. Whereas other stories like O Sheehan felt like it was paying a great homage to Sherlock Holmes, and also Postcard from Kill Kinney felt like it was giving a great nod to Bram Stoker's Dracula. But with stories aside, if you're unfamiliar with Irish creatures, Kelly has provided a cryptoid glossary in the back of this collection, and following that is a Gaelic to English translator which is necessary for a few words and phrases throughout this book. Now, overall, I didn't feel like Irish Gothic scared me, but it did make my adrenaline pump in a few places. Also, I really love how this feels like an original work while it's very rich with its imagery and folklore. I really loved Irish Gothic by Ronald Kelly because it showcases a great deal of imagination, and it also has a strong folkloric vibe from beginning to end. Also, it really did put me in the spirit of St. Patrick's Day. Now, even though this is a horror book, nothing in here is so explicit that it couldn't be read by a teenager. So for that reason, I feel like this is suitable for adults and young adults, and due to the diversity between each of the stories, I really feel like there's a little bit of something in here for everyone. So for those reasons, I do highly recommend Irish Gothic by Ronald Kelly. On to the questions. My first question is, what is a horror book you would recommend about something Irish-based? My second question is, what are you doing for St. Patrick's Day? Load up the comments. Now that we have that covered, it's time to close out the video, which before I do, I'd like to say thank you to Lisa G, as well as J.L. Mulvihill, which J.L. Mulvihill is a young adult fantasy steampunk author, and her books are available in print, ebook, and audio, which those are available wherever books are sold. Also, I would like to say thank you to Melody Romeo, which Melody Romeo is a historic fiction and fantasy author, and her books are available in print and ebook, which those are available wherever books are sold. Also, last but not least, I would like to say thank you to my mom. And if you're wondering why I'm giving a shout out to these wonderful people, it's because they've had the opportunity to contribute to my Patreon, which if you would like to contribute as well, there's a link available in the description section of this video. And for $5 a month, I'll give you a shout out at the end of my episodes, which if you're a creator, I'll mention what it is that you create as well. And for $10 a month, I'll still give you that shout out, but I'll also send over a creepy photo at the beginning of every month, which I do creepy photography on the side. And once you receive that, you can print it off, do whatever you like. But if you're able to contribute, that's awesome. If not, no sweat. All I hope is you return to this channel so we can continue to have a good time together. And if you would like to hunt me down on social media, links to my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are also in the description section of this video. And if you have yet to subscribe, be sure to subscribe and click that notifications bell because I have more book reviews coming in the near future. And until we see each other again, I hope you have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day and sweet nightmares.